Along the great American rivers where steamboats once churned and docks groaned under the weight of cotton and timber, people told stories. They spoke not just of commerce and conquest, but of the strange and patient ways the heart is shaped by love. For the river gives and the river takes. And sometimes, if the old tales are to be believed, the river returns what pride once cast away. Such is the legend of Thomas Hale and Lillian Grace. A story not of love easily won, but of love nearly lost and slowly redeemed. Where the tree branches hung low and touched the flowing water, Thomas Hale was known for his ambition. He was strong, broad-shouldered, and quick with a smile, but quicker still with impatience. He believed that life must be seized swiftly, that fortune favored the bold, and that love, if real, would burn bright and immediate like a match struck in darkness. Lillian Grace believed otherwise. She moved with a quiet assurance, her laughter as soft as wind through reeds, and her eyes as steady as the river at dusk. She often said that love was not lightning, but a lantern. It must be tended to carefully, shielded from harsh winds, and fed with small daily acts of kindness. Thomas adored her, yet even in his devotion, there was possession. He wanted promises sealed quickly, a wedding arranged before the next harvest, a future secured before the leaves could fall. But Lillian would smile, place her hand upon his, and gently remind him that roots grow deeper when not forced. The elders of the town spoke of the river in quiet tones. They said that at dusk, when the sky turned amber and the current slowed to a reflective hush, the river listened. It heard confessions carried on the evening air and tested the sincerity of longing. Many laughed at such tales. Thomas laughed even louder. He once declared before friends that he would never entrust his fate to water and whispers. He insisted that fortune was earned, not granted. One day an opportunity came to travel south with a trading vessel, an opportunity that promised quick wealth and quicker recognition. Thomas seized it immediately. Lillian did not beg him to stay. She only asked him a question, one meant to help him think through his decision. "Are you leaving to build a life with me?" she asked, "or to prove something to yourself?" Pride answered for him. He spoke of riches and his grand return, of fine houses and silks, and how she would thank him one day for taking this bold and daring step. Beneath a fading sunset, he kissed her brow and bade her farewell, promising to come back bigger and better. Then he boarded the steamboat and vanished beyond the bend. Years passed, and the river kept its rhythm. The seasons changed. The willows grew taller, and Lillian grew quieter. She did not wither, nor did she harden. She tended her father's shop, helped neighbors, mended nets, and read letters for those who could not read their own. Her love for Thomas didn't evaporate, but neither did it cling desperately. She understood that love cannot be forced to bloom in barren soil. If it is to live, it must be chosen freely and daily. Far from home, Thomas discovered that fortune is not won without cost. Most of his business ventures failed. Partners deceived him. Gold slipped through his fingers like sand. He gained coin only to lose it. He chased opportunity and found only exhaustion. In lonely boarding rooms, he would sometimes hear the faint memory of Lillian's voice, speaking of patience, of gentleness, of tending a lantern rather than striking matches. Hardship has a way of humbling arrogance. Slowly, Thomas began to understand that love is not conquered. It is cultivated. The years carved humility into him, not with cruelty, but with truth. He learned to listen before speaking, to work without boasting, to give without expectation of return. And when at last his restless spirit quieted, he felt a longing deeper than any ambition, a longing not for wealth, but for home. So with little more than a modest song and a heart altered by experience, Thomas went back to the riverside town. He hoped they would forgive him, but was scared they wouldn't even care. The town had changed. New buildings stood where old docks once sagged. Children he didn't recognize played along the bank. The willow trees were taller, casting broader shade. Lillian Grace stood outside her father's shop, speaking kindly to an elderly woman. When she turned and saw him, she stood as still as if time had paused. There was no dramatic gasp, no tears flung upon his coat, only her intense gaze that searched him, not for his appearance, but for the truth within him. He spoke her name softly. She answered with courtesy, but with distance. For love, once wounded, must be approached with care. That evening, as dusk painted the river gold, Thomas walked alone to the water's edge. He remembered his mockery, his pride, and the careless certainty with which he had left. Kneeling by the reeds, he spoke, not loudly, but honestly. He confessed his arrogance, his hunger for applause, his failure to value what was steady and true. The river was quiet, yet the reeds seemed to whisper, and in his reflection upon the surface, he did not see the man he was, but the boy who once laughed beneath willow branches with a girl who believed in lantern light. Ripples moved against the current, unnatural and slow, and though no voice answered, he felt the profound weight of being heard. From that day forward, Thomas did not pursue Lillian with grand gestures. He did not bring her jewels or spin tales of distant adventures. Instead, he began with small acts. He repaired the loose boards of her father's porch without announcing himself. He delivered firewood to widows before winter and asked for nothing in return. He listened when Lillian spoke and did not interrupt. He apologized without defending himself and accepted that forgiveness, if given, would not arrive quickly. The townsfolk noticed the change. Some doubted it, others waited, and so did Lillian. She watched not for passion, but for a pattern, not for promises, but for practice. As weeks turned into months, she saw consistency where there had once been haste. One evening, as the two walked beside the river, the sky deep with a violet hush, Lillian asked him why he had truly returned. Thomas did not speak of loneliness or regret alone. He spoke of understanding that love is not possession, nor proof of worth, but partnership. He told her that he once believed himself the hero of his own story, but had learned that true strength lies in humility and service. He admitted that he had left to be admired, but returned wishing only to be worthy. The river stirred softly, the reeds bending inward as if leaning in to listen, and Lillian felt the shift. It was not in his spectacle, but in his sincerity. "Forgiveness is not forgetting," she said. "It is choosing to believe that change is real." She told him her love had never died, but it had grown cautious, and that if they were to begin again, it must be as equals, not as dreamer and doubter, but as two souls committed to tending the same lantern. Thomas agreed, not in haste, but in reverence. The seasons turned once more, and the river ran clear through the spring thaw. The townspeople often remarked that the water seemed calmer those days, as though satisfied. On an autumn evening, beneath golden leaves, Thomas and Lillian were wed, not in luxury, but in a quiet celebration. Their vows were simple. Promises to practice patience, to guard kindness, to speak truth even when pride trembled, and to choose one another daily. Not because the river decreed it, but because love, refined by trial, had become their deliberate decision. The old legend endured that the river returns what the heart truly longs for. Yet those who knew the full story understood the deeper truth. The river does not restore what is demanded. It reflects what is transformed. So when dusk settles upon still waters and reflections shimmer between the present and the past, remember this. Love is not secured by speed, nor maintained by pride. It is grown through gentleness, strengthened by humility, and sustained by forgiveness. And if you ever doubt that hearts can change, look to the river that once carried a restless young man away and returned him wiser, kinder, and ready to choose again. For true love does not merely find its way back. It learns how to stay. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more tales of love, life, and the lessons we learn along the way.